Last thing you need is coffee. Who's that guy? Are you cute? Oh my goodness. You know, she just... Okay. Are you trying to make the opener? Is that what you're trying to do? Oh, okay. You don't look me for it. Hey. It is a very noisy evening in my house right now, but I thought I would still take you along for the ride because, well, this is real life. So we recently butchered our turkeys, and I thought I would show you guys what I do with the feet and the necks. Sounds gross, but still. I remember when I was fresh, like figuring out what in the what is going on with this whole chicken broth, chicken stock, bone stock, all those things. When that piece was kind of unlocked for me in homesteading land or just cooking from scratch, I realized, wow, what have I been missing out on? That's seems like such basic knowledge, but honestly has been lost in generations of millennials and zennials and so on and so forth, because we just don't cook that way anymore. Thankfully, there's this huge turn back to what is, you know, back to our roots cooking, but I thought I would show you. It makes you kind of feel like you're like, that you have like a cauldron, you know? It's kind of weird, but makes the best broth ever. So let's go look at it. Please don't judge me for my very ghetto looking crockpot, but you see here, you have some necks and feet. Just a brewing in here, okay? So what I do is I literally just turn on, or I just take these, roast them in a pan in my oven at like 400 degrees for like 20 minutes. And then I put them in my crock pot and I fill my crock pot with water. Forget about it. Then I leave it there on low for about 24 to 48 hours, depending on just my life and my time. And then it turns into this delicious broth. This is the broth that was the first round. I also put a splash of apple cider vinegar in there to be able to release the minerals out of the bones. So you'll see it's got a good jello effect on the top. That is all that gelatin. It's not really gelatin. It's the collagen released out of the bones that are kind of just floating at the top. Amazing healthy fat for your digestion and skin and all the things. So this is round one. So I'm already in like Thanksgiving mode in my head. Like, okay, what can I prep ahead? Today is November 10th. And I typically cook everything for our family. So my girls help, of course. I just mean I'm kind of in charge of the whole menu. We typically do 2 turkeys. I do a roasted one. Dave does a smoked one. So it's a really yum situation that we have for our leftovers. And then I also get to make some smoked turkey stock off of those smoked turkey bones, which is amazing, especially like in rice or any kind of like gravy or something like that you want to make with chicken broth or chicken stock, i.e. turkey this time. But anyways, I'm always trying to look ahead of what can I make ahead. And so there's quite a few things that I do ahead to get ready. So now I've got all of my broth ready for my stuffing and gravies and everything like that. I wanted to kind of show you how simple it is, really. So okay, Jan, I don't have a bunch of turkeys I'm getting ready to butcher. How do I make my own broth? Super simple. You're gonna take the carcass of whatever chicken, turkey, whatever you've made, and you're going to throw it in a crock pot, an Instapot, a stock pot, and cover it with water. And let magic do its thing. That magic being, let it slow and simmer or slow cook for 24 to 48 hours, however you feel comfortable about it. Some people do it for 6, some people do it for 12. I'm going to tell you right now, the internet is a place full of rules that aren't necessarily necessary. I personally like to kind of lean into how I feel like it fits best. So for me, it's 24 to 48 hours, somewhere in there. Typically more in the 12 to 24. So I roast the bones. If you've already cooked a chicken, you got a rotisserie chicken from the store, throw those bones in a pot, cover it with water, and then throw some really good salt, some peppercorns, and a splash of apple cider vinegar. Magic. Say you want something with a lot of like herb to it, you can throw some thyme, you can throw some rosemary. I typically do my chicken or turkey broth, just salt, pepper, apple cider vinegar for the first little bout, so 12 hours. And then if I want it to have a specific flavor, I'm going to throw in my veggie stuff, because onions can actually make things taste a little bitter if you throw those in for a long cook like that. So I actually have, let me get it. Okay, so fresh out of my freezer is this bag of random veggie scraps. So lately I've been feeding them to my pigs just because, why not? But I've been saving back a bag to be able to throw in for this second round of bone broth that I'm making. So this has got all of my carrot peels. It's got like the butts of the celery that I'm like, I don't really want to eat that part. It also has some onion peels in here and like the butts of the onions. So I kept this one specifically onion, carrot, and celery. You can totally save other vegetables. I typically stick to like the trifecta of deliciousness, and that would be onions, celery, carrots. I know that this very first batch has so much nutrients in it. It's got a lot of flavor because it's the very first one, and it has the best amount of collagen in it. Whenever I go over here to this batch, which I started this morning, I strained off that broth that had been cooking for a little over 24 hours. And this one right here has been cooking since this morning, and you can kind of see already that it's got a nice color to it. I'm gonna take this broth and add my veggie scraps to this. So what I'll probably do is throw those veggie scraps in probably before I go to bed, and then in the morning I'm gonna strain it all, and then that will be a really good medley, and that's probably the broth that I will save for Thanksgiving. Because it's just going to have all the flavors that I know I'm going to really want. Plus, I'm already a little heavy-handed on the butter at Thanksgiving. So this stock I will save for more of our soups, our stews, or especially if someone's not feeling well and we want to have some good bone broth. This is going to be the stock that I'd rather save for that. Look what the cat drug in.
Mom, how about pop it?
I'm going to go ahead and throw in my frozen veggie situation in this pot. This right here is definitely the trifecta of deliciousness for your soul. So this is all living his best life, and I'm gonna come back to this in just a little bit and show you how I move forward after this. Okay, I went ahead and let it sit overnight to cool down, so you can see you got a much different color. Excuse my morning breath. So you can tell that a lot of these veggies have just kind of become quite squishy and gross, you know. And so this is kind of what this looks like. So you can see the fat has already started to cool. So I'm going to go ahead and strain this out in my pot. If you've not went ahead and bought yourself one of these 4-jar sets of the funnels, you must. Let me show you one of my favorite features about these. First of all, they're like so indestructible, which is amazing. I had a plastic one for forever that honestly had seen worse for worse, and I had to go in the trash. So when we were at the Homestead Festival, I picked this one up, this set, but it comes with your wide mouth and your regular mouth. And then this is the part that gets in. Especially for things like this, it has a strainer piece that fits right in this.
and it doesn't wiggle too much. Like it's nice and set. So what I can do now is I'm gonna grab my ladle. And I'm gonna go ahead. I hate dishes, so I'm just gonna go ahead and stick this broth in these jars that I have already cooled off. Stir this off. Remember, this was my first batch that has all this delicious gelatin to it. You can kind of see it's almost like a syrup, which sounds disgusting, yes, but great for your body. So I'm gonna strain this through here just to make sure. I already did one strain, but just to make sure that I have strained out all the little particles that I don't want in my bone broth. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill up the rest of the jars with my first round of really good gelatinous bone broth, and then I'll come back and show you how I strain that out. I got 3 quarts out of this, which is pretty awesome. There's a little bit left in this pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and strain directly into this pot because I don't really want to lose any of that collagen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab a fine mesh strainer, and I'm going to just pour this into this, which I'm going to do over there because I make messes. Got my fine mesh strainer. Now let's pour this in. Now we just pray that I don't wear all that. That's typically the drive in this. Being sitting out. So now what I'm going to do is this is going to become bacon, aka goes to my cakes. And this has actually cooled enough for me to go ahead and put it in jars. So while my house is quiet and I don't have children yelling at me, I'm going to go ahead and throw these in my quart jars so you can kind of see how I do this as well. So you saw I already fine mesh strained this with that, and now you can already see too what my what I missed to that first strain. So double straining really helps keep your broth nice and particle free. I personally don't care. A lot of people do though. You can see now it's pretty clear, pretty yummy. I'm excited whenever I get to start really moving towards Thanksgiving holiday meals and prepping. It's a lot of fun. So, all right, I'm gonna fill these up and then I'll show you how I can this up as well. My house will probably be loud at that point. I'm gonna pressure canning these, but I mean, if you came here for hair or for a quiet ambiance, this is not the right channel. Okay, so the Presto is the canner that I have. This is what it looks like. Ish. So these are the ones you'll be able to find pretty readily available at any store. This one has a rubber seal, locks in. This definitely isn't as great as like an All-American or something, but she does the job. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my jars ready and get them loaded in, and then I'm gonna show you how I fill my pots, or fill my pot up, and let's talk all things pressure canning. Okay, I'm a rule follower when it needs to be. Okay. I feel like some things create analysis paralysis, and then you get stuck with doing nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you are an absolute rule follower, my ways of canning may not be your ways of canning, and that's okay. If you would like to have all the rules, you could find them. They're out there. I prefer to learn from experienced people, and that's kind of how I choose to go about it, because if my grandma and my great-grandma and my great-great-grandma did it one way, and then all of a sudden we about face and come up with more doctrine on how it should or shouldn't be, that is going to be my red flag. So, considering my grandparents lived well into their 80s and 90s, and my grandma canned food, and I'm just going to go that way, okay? tomato, tomato, you know, we'll love each other through. Okay, I have my, here. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe the rims off of my jars that I did over here. And get my lids nice and wiped down and cleaned. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay down my I'm just gonna go ahead and roll them as I go so they're out of my way. This part is really simple. It's kind of basic. Just wipe down the rims just to make sure there's nothing on there. It's more because you don't want your food or product to be stuck up in between that gasket and your sealed jar. So then you end up with potential, just a bad faulty seal. So that's all that is really. This is also when you can inspect your jars just to make sure that there's no chips or anything in the glass themselves. Okay, so I've loaded up my canner and I'm gonna make sure that my jars aren't touching. You can kind of tell I shake it a little bit, it's not moving. So, I mean, you can shove them in there however you want, but I'm gonna go ahead and get this filled up with water. This is the other part that, like, tomato. Ruthie Zimmerman, if you don't follow her, she's amazing. Follow her. If you're not following her, what are you doing? But seriously, go follow Ruthie Zimmerman. She is former Mennonite, and she knows, she's like, you know, young, but knows all the grandma ways. So, again, I'm filling this up with room temperature water. I don't want it to be hot. I don't want it to be cold. Because my jars are room temperature. Anyways, she talks about how I would have a lot of siphoning issues with my product coming out of my jars. And in some things, not all things, some things. Well, she answered my question to that when I was watching one of her videos. Because the safety guidelines tell you to cover your jars, the headroom above, but she doesn't, and she covers them just below the rims, and so it doesn't allow it for it to siphon. I'm like, oh, that's genius. But because everything has to be regulated in the United States, they have to have these black and white rules for everyone to follow. And I'm just not that girl. Okay, I'm not that girl. So if you are the black and white rule follower and that gives you anxiety, just ignore everything I'm saying then. And I have plenty of books I can recommend to you because I used to follow those books to a T and get kind of frustrated because I'm the person that's not necessarily a huge, I mean, I'm a rule follower. I love the Lord. I love the Bible. Like, I'm not like anti-rule and law, but I also am very make it make sense kind of person. So, okay, so I'm going to turn you around so you can kind of see where I'm at with this water. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pour just a little bit more water to get it to the edge of this. Just a little bit more. Yeah, right to my rims, okay? So it's right to the edge of this rim. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a splash of vinegar in here so that my, maybe not directly on top of that one. There you go. Just so that it keeps my jars from getting cloudy from hard water. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my lid on. Canning's kind of a long game. So I know today I've got a couple work meetings I have to do, and I got some things I have to take care of. So I'm going ahead and starting this now so that I can let it cool while I'm gone. So what I'm going to do now is with a Presto, it's got a gasket. This is very easy to pull off now, but this slides and seals it really tight. It's kind of a tight push. Okay, now I'm going to turn on my stove to high to get this to boiling. Okay, so let's talk about this situation right here. So right now I have my canner on. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna wait until basically the water that's in this gets to boiling and creates enough pressure inside of this to shoot steam out of this vent. So this vent right here will start shooting out steam, and I'm going to let this shoot out steam for about 10 minutes. Once it's shot out for about 10 minutes, what I'll do is I'll put my weight on, okay? I'll put my weight on here, and then it's going to create pressure, and it's going to build on this gauge. And what I'm looking for is 10 pounds per pressure for this specific canning job. So I'm going to have it get to 10 pounds per pressure, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer for 25 minutes while watching this and regulating it to making sure that it doesn't go under 10, but not go too far over 10. And then once it has come to pressure, it has stayed at pressure for 25 minutes. What I'll do is I'll turn off the heat, and I'm just going to walk away and let it slowly cool down. As I see that this gauge returns to 0, I will take this weight off. It'll probably still have quite a bit of steam coming out. And then I'm also going to wait just a little bit longer so that there's not a huge temperature swing that will allow 1, bad seals, or 2, cracked jars. So it's kind of an all-day adventure. Not really all day, but it's a little bit of an adventure for this little turkey broth party. So what I'm gonna do now is just make some coffee, get my kids some breakfast made, and go ahead and get ready to start our day. We've got school, I've got some work meetings, things to do, all while kind of babysitting this. Fortunately, I am doing this in my house. It is very cold out today, and I don't want to pull out a propane stove to do this on. And so I will be doing it this way, which means it's going to be in the hub of my home, and I'm going to be able to keep an eye on it. Okay, my steam has been shooting out for 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and take my weight, stick it on here. All right. And now we wait for this pressure gauge to, there we go. Mine sometimes gets stuck with condensation on the back, so I have to tap it. So this is now building pressure. You can see the pressure valve is popped up. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait for this gauge to reach 10. Okay, you can see it's starting to climb up. Almost there. Okay, you can see I let it get a little bit over 10. I have turned off my stove, and I'm just gonna babysit it and watch it. As long as it stays above 10 pounds per pressure for 25 minutes, I'm good to go to just leave it off. I'm just gonna babysit it and make sure it stays above 10. Catch you back in 25. Okay, so the day has went on. This is what always ends up happening whenever I do something like this. I just let it come down to pressure. This is no longer steam. It's nice and warm. So like I can put my hand on it. It definitely feels warm still. So these jars have been sitting in here. You also want to check to make sure that your pressure gauge is down, which it is. Also, my pressure is down to 0. If this was not down to 0, like you would see this still popped up, your gauge would be kind of funny. And this right here would also be spewing out steam if it was way too hot. So this is really a telltale sign that it's ready to go. I'm gonna lay down a towel right here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pull these out and let them cool to room temperature overnight. And then I will take the rings off. Okay, so again, I'm gonna just pop this off. You know it's all, so I feel like anyone I've ever talked to about a pressure canner starts to freak out because they think that like it's gonna explode because of just the fables and the things that did happen in the past. But most of it is honestly just fear tactics, in my opinion, to keep you from actually canning your own food. So you can see everything looks happy and good, and my seals have already sealed. These are absolutely crucial if you're gonna can. There's a lot of things that come in those kits that, yes, they're great to have, because you don't have to have. You have to have this, unless you don't want fingertips. So, you know. Also, you can see my vinegar did a great job keeping these nice and clear. Vinegar totally is a game changer for that. So if you are having issues with cloudy looking jars, you most likely have hard water in your water, and you need to just throw some vinegar in there. That was one of those things that I thought, oh man, I'm doing wrong. But I really wasn't doing wrong. It was just I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I'll check these in the morning and see once I take the rings off, but based off of the way all these are looking, they look nice and sealed. So I lived in analysis paralysis for forever about sourdough and some canning.
Luckily, my best friend back in Indiana was like, we would can green beans. It was like the thing that we did. We canned green beans together. And it made me fall in love with canning. And I actually, it's kind of funny looking back on it now. When we first moved here, I struggled hardcore with like canning. I was like, I miss my best friend. And now I'm like, I got to can because I got too much stuff. And I like to have good, wholesome food. So, okay. So you can see, this is how I pulled it out of the canner. So it's nice and loose. You can see this one's very loose too. So I'm just going to dry off these rims. So fun fact, if you don't know this about canning, you want to always take your rings off because one, water gets chopped up underneath there and it will rust, and two, it can also cause a false seal. I'm gonna say that this one right here, oh my goodness, you're silly. I'm gonna say that this one right here is probably just my turkey broth, and this one right here is my my veggie stock. So what is that? Do you know what that is?
Wow, that's cool.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, so that's start to finish a day of life. I have delicious home-grown, home-canned turkey broth ready for Thanksgiving. Something that we always do when we butcher is we always pray before we butcher. We feel like there's a healthy respect that we should have for what this animal is getting for us to be able to eat. And so it's a somber day, but it's a great day because we get to put some healthy food in our freezer and some healthy meals ahead of us because we get to use the entire bird. Nothing goes to waste with those turkeys, which is even more of a blessing in my opinion, because you know, when I go to the store and when I buy a turkey, I have no idea what happened to the rest of that turkey. We have literally, it's kind of gruesome, so if you have a weak belly, I bid you farewell. But you know, when we go through the butchering process, parts of the bird obviously we don't keep, and all of those parts go to our pigs. Our pigs eat all of it, the innards, the heads, all of it. And then even the feathers go to the pigs, they eat them, as well as our chickens, because they just went through molting. So I was trying to give them some extra protein with feathers, and they have been snacking on feathers. Also, I just throw them out into my garden. They act as a good mulch here and there too. So the feathers even get used. The blood goes into my garden or into our compost pile to add nutrients back into the soil. I take the feet and the necks in. That's what you just saw happen here, making this stock. And then, of course, we're going to eat the body. And once we've eaten our fill of the meat, I'm going to take the meaty carcass and throw it in a big stock pot and boil it down, pull off any of the extra meat that was left on the carcass, and make more bone broth off of that. And then, of course, all of the remnant of after making the stock, like what I did today, went straight to our pigs this morning. And the same thing with what will happen with the meaty carcass. Once I've pulled all the meat off of it and I have gotten everything that I want off of it, it'll go to our pigs. So it is a full circle, which is honestly such a wholesome way to go about your food, in my opinion, because absolutely nothing is wasted. The other part that's just so insane to me now is how much produce I would throw away. I didn't save the butts of my anythings, you know what I mean? Didn't save any of like the onion skins and the butts of the celery and the peels from the carrots. And I literally just have a freezer bag that sits in my freezer and is specifically for that. And I just throw all those things in there and I'm able to accumulate them to be able to create stock. If you're vegetarian or you don't want a meat stock or a meat-based broth, you could even do that with your vegetables. I've done that too, where I've made a veggie stock, specifically for like vegetable soup or things like that, that I want something to have more of a, I don't want it to err on like a protein side. Save all of the remnants of your vegetables. There's not really a right or wrong way. you're going to know if you did it quote unquote wrong, but you're going to learn something in that. And the worst thing you've wasted is some time and some water. Like, you were already going to throw away those things anyway, so it's not that deep, really, you know? And I encourage everyone to just be daring enough to just try something. If you fail, who cares? We all fail. That's how you learn some of the life's greatest lessons. So, all right, well, I hope that you've enjoyed this little vloggy vlog of making turkey stock with me. So, I'll catch you on the next one. Do all the things. What does Dad say? No, you're not going to say it?
I don't know what Dad says.
Dad says like, subscribe, hit all the buttons, you know, the thing. Do the thing. It'll make Dave happy. See you later.
There's so much crashes. Rachel, what did he get stolen?